how appreciative we are that you have taken time out of your day to join us. We would like to begin today's meeting by basically having an overview of the commission responsibilities that we have for the commission. And if you, just to remind you, we do have 10 mandates for the commission. It is to improve stakeholder input on the Division of Rehabilitative Services programs and services that are provided, to determine a method of improving the relationship and communication between transition professionals working at the Division of Rehabilitative Services, as well as the Developmental Disabilities Administration, methods for improving the amount of time it takes to provide vocational rehabilitation and transitional services, methods for improving public-private partnerships to assist more Division of Rehabilitative Services clients, methods for improving accountability and transparency of the Division of Rehabilitative Services programs and services, whether the eligibility criteria for the Division of Rehabilitative Services programs and services should be altered, whether the Division of Rehabilitative Services should continue to be a division within the State Department of Education or should it be transferred to another agency. If the commission determines that DORS should continue to be a division of the State Department of Education, whether DORS should be a governing board or have a separate governing board from the State Board of Education. 9, whether there are specific budgetary requests that could support the job training programs that are provided by DORS. And number 10, any other improvements to the Division of Rehabilitative Services and the programs that the commissioners deem as appropriate. At our last meeting, we did review 4 different mandates, and Scott, I would like for you to review what those mandates were for us, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Scott Dennis, Assistant State Superintendent for the Division of Rehabilitation Services. The 4 that we reviewed last time, and we'll be doing some recaps on those 4, is a method for improving stakeholder input in the Division of Rehabilitation Services programs and services, methods for improving the public and private partnerships to assist more DORS clients. Number 6, whether or not the eligibility criteria for the Division of Rehabilitation Services programs and services should be altered. And number 9, whether there are specific budgetary requests that could support the job training programs provided by the Division of Rehabilitation Services. In addition, today we'll also be diving into the methods for improving the amount of time it takes to provide vocational rehabilitation and transitional services.
Thank you, Scott. As you can see from today's agenda, one of the things that we are going to do today is the selection of a commission chair. When the commission was first established, for the first time in the 6 years that I have been here, the state superintendent was given an opportunity to determine the commission. But one of the things that the state superintendent is adamant about is that the commission will be independent. He is dedicated to ensuring that the services that clients receive are done so in an expedient and high-quality manner, and he is equally dedicated to ensuring that this commission is composed of individuals who bring their own unique experiences and that those experiences and ideas are highly valued. This commission will need to be a group of independent thinkers, and we are going to make sure that everyone is provided with an opportunity to share your thoughts and opinions, but most importantly, your ideas. All future meetings will be designed so that we can make sure that we capture questions that the commission members may have, and we want to make sure that we respond to those questions. In reviewing the professional as well as the personal experiences of the commission, I must say that I believe that Ms. Lemon will be an excellent choice as the commission chair. She has a knowledge, she has skills, and she has uniquely important personal qualities as well as professional experiences that I think will serve this commission well. At this time, Ms. Lemon, could I get you to share some of your background with the commission members, please?
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me? Good morning. I'm honored to be here today. My name is Marlo Lemon, and it is an honor to serve and to be asked to serve as Commission Chair to study the Division of Rehabilitative Services. This is my 29th year in education, in roles from teaching to administration. Currently, I serve as a Director of Training at the Parents Place of Maryland. Most importantly, though, I am the mother of twin young men who are of transitioning age, who've had 2 different DORS experiences. I see my role as Commission Chair as providing honest feedback on the 10 different topics and moving the Commission along to provide recommendations and services for improvement for all clients of the Division of Rehabilitative Services. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lemon. For those commission members who are joining us virtually, if you would like to share, just please raise your hand. At this time, I am seeking a motion for the appointment of Ms. Lemon as the commission chair.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor? For those commission members who are, okay, I'm sorry, we do have one hand up. Andre? Who is it?
There we go.
Okay.
I can't.
I don't know if you're talking to me. This is Andy Culp. I was going to second the motion. I didn't know if you needed a second.
Oh, yes, I did. Thank you for keeping me on track. I appreciate that.
Good morning. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now I can say any discussion. Okay, all in favor, and those joining us virtually, if you could just hit the little icon to raise your hand and say aye, please.
Aye.
Okay,
Lots of thumbs up.
thumbs up. Okay, I see the thumbs up. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Aye.
Okay, thank you so much, Andrew. Appreciate that. Any objections? Okay, any abstentions? All right, so at this time, I would like to thank the commission for your engagement in that process, and I would like for Ms. Lemon to please come up and take my chair. Congratulations, Ms. Lemon. Thank you so much.
It's on right now, so.
Great. Thank you, everyone. All right. Now, if we can have introductions for people who are here virtually as well as at the department. Thank you. Okay.
Hi, my name is Andrew Berlin. I'm representing High Road School of Harford County. Well, I'm from High Road School of Harford County. I'm a head special education teacher there. And I'm representing non-public schools.
Thank you.
Jade Gingrich with the Maryland Department of Disabilities, Director of Employment and Transition Policy.
Dr. Archer? Dr. Archer?
We need them all unmuted online. We need the Zoom participants unmuted.
Thank you for your patience, everyone. We have to, having some technology issues, we have to unmute everyone so that we can have introductions.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Andy Culp with the ARC Maryland.
Hi, I'm Lillian Archer, Community College of Baltimore County.
Good afternoon, I'm Stephanie Jones with DDA.
Good afternoon, I'm Ellen Caligari. I'm an attorney in private practice with many family members with disabilities, including autism and other disabilities. And I'm a former assistant attorney general. I've been an attorney since 1979, and I'm so grateful that Ms. Lemon has agreed to be the chair of this commission. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Ellen.
Hello, my name is Shannon Menig, and I'm the Deputy Director at Independence Now, and I'm also a constituent of DORS.
My name is Rihanna Miller. I'm with Appalachian Crossroads, and I'm the Director of Day and Vocational Services.
I'm Megan Jones. I'm with Disability Rights Maryland.
My name is Sarah Ray. I'm a Worcester County Public Schools special education teacher, and I'm also a project search instructor at Atlantic General Hospital.
Jim?
Oh, yeah. I'm James Evans. I'm a program manager at the Workforce and Technology Center with DORS.
Right.
All right, thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. The first thing on our agenda is to review and the discussion of questions from our first session. And I can say, I guess, as I was listening to where everyone was represented, whether or not this goes now or later, my first thought was I did not necessarily hear anyone from a local school system.
Sarah Ray is from Worcester County.
Project search in Worcester County.
Yeah, but she's with the local school system.
Okay. It's just something to think about as we move forward for some of the recommendations.
All right. Good afternoon again, everybody. Scott Dennis with the Division of Rehabilitation Services. We had a number of questions last go around, and some of them we were able to answer, but we went back through and we made sure we captured everything, and so we're going to go back through, make sure that we answer those questions, and then we'll move forward. So just bear with me 1 minute. I sort of kind of get my act together here. One of the questions that came up during the Disability Determination Services segment of last week's presentation asked a couple questions concerning quality and quality assurance. So we wanted to make sure we went back and make sure we addressed those questions. One of the first ones was how is the accuracy defined, and based on what information that was sent back to me from the DDS, was that the accuracy is defined as far as It's an inline process from start to finish with quality assurance individuals who go through and look at the work that is currently being done by the claims examiners, looking for issues dealing with whether or not the right and appropriate policies are applied to the various cases that they're adjudicating, and to correct any errors that they see as far as in-process determination is going. In addition to that, the DDS also undergoes quality assurance from the Social Security Administration, where each week cases are randomly pulled from their case clearances, and those are reviewed by individuals out of their Office of Quality Assurance, and to review those cases again to determine whether or not the appropriate policies, Social Security policies, were applied to that case in making a determination, and whether or not that case, was an allowance or denial. Through this past year, the DDS had, based on SSA's review of the cases, had a 97.9% accuracy rate of their cases. And when we talk about the, again, independence, again, that review that determines the overall accuracy rate is done by the Social Security Administration themselves in looking at those cases. Another question that came up dealt with during our stakeholder input and outreach segment of the presentation, dealt with the response rate to our customer satisfaction survey. And going back and taking a look at our customer satisfaction responses for the past year, we had a 14.2% response rate from consumers. And the question on how do we obtain meaningful input from our consumers, again, I believe we answered this, but we'll go ahead and again provide information. When we send out our customer satisfaction survey, again, the responses are sent out to individuals at various stages in the process of their cases, from start to finish, and even after their case has been closed with them, to elicit information. We use a multi-level layer of questioning, depending upon the response of the individuals. And hoping even if there's a negative response, to try to have an understanding of what that negative response is about. And so we do delve into having 2 and 3 layers of questions to try to gain an understanding of that individual's response as we move forward. And again, we do these customer satisfaction surveys on a quarterly basis. Again, question came up during the section on the VR program itself, dealing with and changes that occurred under the Workforce Innovation and Opportunities Act that changed the measures that at which the VR program is judged against, dealing with credential attainments and skills gains, measurements, and so forth. Given that DORS supports such a high population of individuals with cognitive disability, how are you ensuring that you can meet the federal requirements? Again, for those particular requirements, it's for those individuals who are enrolled in an educational type of program, whether it be a training program or whether it's in school or in college. So only those individuals are counted towards those measures. So individuals who are not enrolled into a training program or educational program don't get counted in that cohort measurement. Again, this next two questions actually came out of the partnership segment and deal with questions about how the child's school or LEAs are informed of pre-employment transitioning services provided by DORS or through a contractor, and how these services are annotated on the child's IEP to inform their transitioning activities and post-secondary goals. We do have school liaisons that's assigned to each and every school, and a lot of this information is relayed back to the school or to the IEP chair. And again, pre-employment transitioning services is something that can be, the referrals and services that are provided can be something that can be initiated at the school level, but it also can be initiated by the parents themselves. And so the other piece of this puzzle is we have to have permission from the parents to be able to share information back to the school system as well. So it's sort of, it kind of goes both ways on that. On how LEAs and transitioning specialists are trained, again, we have a staff specialist for transitioning services, and that individual provides training to the LEAs, as well as the counselors who are assigned to the various schools and so forth. So again, we try to provide information. We still, with a lot of the transitioning that has occurred and turnover, both at the Division of Rehabilitation Services as well as in the school system, this is going to be an ongoing effort by DORS in order to keep everybody up to speed as to what is and is not allowed under pre-employment or even the VR services.
Scott, if we could address, there's,
Okay.
someone would like to know, could we please also send the link by email? Phil is handling that, but there was a question about whether or not your responses would be provided in writing along with verbally.
We'll transcribe that, yep. Okay. Last go around, in the first session, we did cover a lot of territory. We covered 4 topics. So we're going to circle back around and, as I mentioned earlier, to get some additional input. 2 of the topics we felt that we had covered sufficiently. We had gotten some stakeholder input. But we want to see if there's any additional recommendations that the group has. Again, based on the last session, these were the recommendations that came out of the stakeholder input segment. And so we want to see if, other than the 3 that we've got displayed here, whether or not there are any additional recommendations that we need to consider at this time.
Jay?
I feel like these don't capture all that was discussed, because I know I had referenced the State Agency Transition Collaborative and also the MDOD listserv, and it seems to be heavy on the DD Council, but not on how to reach other populations. And I just want to make certain that the recommendations really reflect reaching all populations of individuals with disabilities, not just the IDD population.
Okay. So So the DOD listserv. And this is why we're coming, circling back around.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it.
State Agency Transition
Position,
Collaborative.
yep.
The still through the Centers for Independent Living.
Living.
The autism groups. I'm trying to think of populations who might not otherwise be represented.
Your mic.
Turn the mic on.
Your mic's not on.
Okay, I was turning it on.
There it is now.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. So I was just trying to think about all of the disability groups to ensure that we have that broad representation, across the categories. I don't know if there's a way to reach students who have 504 plans versus IEPs, because students with 504 plans would potentially be eligible for DORS services as well, maybe through counseling. I guess it may vary from the school system, but that's where I'm trying to think sort of broadly. Are we hitting all of the potential populations?
Anything else?
Thanks, Jade.
Okay, we have a tech question. Is there a reason why some commissioners are able to unmute and ask questions, but others are muted, unable to unmute? Should others put their questions in the comments or chats?
Or raise their hand?
Yeah, I think if they raise their hand, will they be unmuted automatically?
Yeah, we have.
Okay. Yeah, so that question came from Andy. So Andy, I'm gonna ask to unmute you and see if that will help. Okay.
Thanks. It was really just an accessibility question too. I don't know if everybody on the call is able to raise a hand if they're called in. So just something to think about, participation.
Yeah, if you're not able to raise your hand to call in, if you could type in the chat, then I can request to unmute. There's like a control room in the back that is handling the mute and the unmute. So thanks for being
Okay,
here.
I think some people, because of their accessibility needs, aren't able to access the chat either. So it's just something I'd hope you all would think about for the future, and the necessity to mute everyone as opposed to just requiring people to behave and raise their hand before they talk.
All right.
Thank you. Ellen had a question.
Thanks so much. I agree with everything Andy just said. We promise to be good and not interrupt too much, but this is pretty frustrating because of all the reasons that Andy just said. But so the other thing in terms of the stakeholder input is our world of disabilities is filled with acronyms and filled with terms that are difficult even for bureaucrats to follow. So doing a plain language review of any documents and also thinking about other ways to communicate other than just through printed words. I know I have clients with disabilities who can have trusted family members or trusted staff supporters who can really help to break down. They've worked with and communicated with the individual for years, and they know how to help them provide input and understand what's being said. And I'm sure that Miss Lemon, Parents Place, is an expert at that. But I think looking at, I think you had said there was a 14% consumer feedback or whatever, and maybe I missed the percentage. But I think you would get a much higher rate of response if you use these alternative methods. Also working with Disability Rights Maryland, we have a supported decision-making coalition, and that law just went into effect October 1st. The members of that group represent a huge cross, continuum of organizations and entities who work with individuals with disabilities, and included individuals with disabilities on the stakeholder group. And I'm sure that Megan, who's on this commission, would be happy to share that list with this commission so that, stakeholder input from them could be gotten on a regular basis. And in terms of getting the transcription of the answers to our questions, it's also important because this is such complex information that you're presenting, and it'd be nice for us to be able to kind of think about it in between. So, thank you, and I will be quiet and not, anyway.
Thank you, Ellen. Remember, one purpose of the commission is for us to get feedback, and your input is important.
Thanks so much.
Okay. Any other comments or input from this particular topic area at this time? Okay, great. Again, great feedback. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, on to the next topic that we covered was how does DORS utilize public and private partnerships to assist the Division of Rehabilitation Services clients. So in this area, we had a number of recommendations. Again, developing a framework for two-way communication between DORS and the local educational agencies, having links to resources for employers and individuals, exploring partnerships across the state for driver's education, developing a partnership between hospitals and universities similar to Morgan State University and the University of Maryland, Baltimore County has with St. Agus. And finally, spell out the process so employers know about their ability to partner with DORS for training and employment opportunities. So those of what we gathered from the last session. So if there's any other additional input, we'd appreciate it. Ellen?
Hey, so I had shared in the chat at the last meeting, lots of my clients really connect with art and music. And so reaching out to, the Baltimore Museum of Art, the Walters Art Gallery, Center Stage, the Baltimore Symphony. So that's non-traditional opportunities for individuals with disabilities to get involved. And I could go on and on, but those are ones that come to mind. But obviously there's a infinite continuum throughout the state of arts and theater and music that provide, just different ways for individuals with disabilities to be part of their community and get some job skills. So thank you.
In follow-up on that, I've been in discussions, and unfortunately, you all may recall, we weren't eligible to apply for the DIF, but the John F. Kennedy Center for Performing Arts was very interested, and I've been in conversations with them about careers in the arts and arts adjacent. And so I'm certainly happy to help facilitate some of that because they were looking at, and they did get funded through some of the other states, some potential to replicate out some pre-ed, some programming and so forth. So I'm happy to get some synergy going around that if that would be helpful.
Sounds good. Okay. Any other thoughts concerning partnerships that we need to consider?
Is it Lillian?
I think Lillian has a question.
Lillian?
Yes, hi. I just really have a question, and that is, in the initial meeting, we heard from the representative that you have a partnership with from, I think it was College Park, University of Maryland, most certainly. I was curious as to who funds that? Is that funded through DORS, or does the university pick up the cost? You know, they were nicely staffed and I think still building. So who incurs who bears the cost of that?
Yes, thank you. And that is a pilot project that's being funded out of the Maryland State Department of Education through one of their ESSER grants. And so it's, like I said, it's a 2-year project that'll wrap up in 2024. And its primary focus at this point in time is really twofold. One is to assist our eligibility determination unit in working with students who have applied for pre-employment transitioning services to gather the necessary information that we need to make a determination whether the individual qualifies for pre-employment transitioning services. Just a real brief recap, if you're not familiar with that program, that's for individuals who are between ages of 14 but less than 22 and who are still in school, and an individual who has a disability. There are certain things that we can delegate and certain things that we can't delegate. And one of the things that we can't not delegate is the actual determination. So what they're doing is doing the information gathering piece of this. And then once that is completed, sending it back to our eligibility unit for them to review and make the final determination. The other part of this is also research, and so what they're doing is taking a look at the various methods of communication, how it's communicated, modalities of communication, to see what is the best method, because at the end of the day, the division needs to look at sustainability once the ESSER funds are over. And so they're looking at sort of a fee-for-service model that will be developed that we can use going forward.
Can I just add some further clarification? So the center itself is funded through federal and state contracts, some of which are competitive. So they have competed through. Still not working? Okay, wow, okay. I got the broken one, I guess. So the center itself is funded through federal grants that they compete, research, and so forth. So it's not funded by the university. And the DORS piece of it is then a contract or an MOU that's funding a portion of that. But I just want to clarify that it's not that there's some sort of magic pot of money that's funding the center. They're going after and identifying things that align with their skills, and they provide technical assistance to other states as well as a result of some of those competitions and so forth.
Thank you, Jade. Did you have a follow-up question?
Her hands just
Got
fell.
her hands up.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay. All right. So again, we appreciate the input. We appreciate the feedback that that you all have provided us on those two particular topic areas. One of the two other topic areas that we covered, we kind of got through. And this next topic area is commission topic number 9, and we're looking at sort of the budgetary request of that might be needed to help support the Division of Rehabilitation Services and their training programs. So we kind of got to the budget side of this question. And so we kind of want to circle back around and kind of go over some of the training that's involved with some of the DORS programs. So again, we're going to just recap a little bit of what we discussed last session. Again, just a quick reminder, the VR grant allotment is based on a number of factors, of which one is the relative wealth of the state, the number of individuals living in the state, and poverty level. And then the final factor is based off basically the CPI index, and that affects the entire VR grant at a national level. So to kind of give you an idea, again, the Social Security Administration just announced an 8.7% increase for benefits for individuals for retirement. And that program uses basically the same consumer price index that is used by the Rehab Services Administration. That increase affects the state's match and maintenance of effort requirement as we go along. So large increases in federal funds then has a subsequent impact on the state's requirements to meet those match and maintenance of effort. As we discussed last time, if DORS funding remains flat in 2024, we'll end up reverting federal funds back to the Rehabilitation Services Administration. And through what is known as a reallotment process, the Rehab Services Administration reverts those funds. Those reverted funds are then given back to states who can meet that additional match requirement. Again, if we remain flat funded, which we have been for a number of years now, the state of Maryland stands to lose $28.5 million over the next 4 fiscal years. So, with that, I'm going to kind of turn it over to Jody for a few minutes, kind of talk about the changes as a result of the Workforce Innovation and Opportunities Act.
Thank you. Okay, all right. So as it says on the slides, prior to the Workforce and Innovation Opportunity Act, individuals they had a choice when they came to us. They could either go to work or they could go to school. They could do some sort of, training, vocational training, and then go to work, but they couldn't do college, university type training at the same time that they were looking for employment. Our funding was limited to one or the other. So WIOA changed this approach, for which we're very thankful, because that was always a stumbling block. And what they've done is they've changed the focus on creating career pathways. So when an individual comes to us now, we look more at the long-term career pathway versus just getting them into a job as quickly as possible. So for an example, DORS could support an individual to go to school to become a certified nursing assistant. If that individual wanted to then further their career, become like a licensed practical nurse or a registered nurse, they would have to choose between doing that training or getting a job and doing that training, say, in the evenings or weekends. Now they have the option of, getting the preliminary, kind of entry-level job and then continuing their career with our support and funding, which is a huge cultural shift within the agency. So another way that WIOA changed performance measures with their focus on training is we're now looking at the second quarter and fourth quarter wages and median wage. And then, of course, the measurable skills gains and credential attainment, which we talked a lot about last time. Okay, so I'm sorry, there is a question. What needs to happen to avoid the over $28 million loss of federal funding, and when does it need to happen? Good question.
Okay. Well, obviously it starts in fiscal year 2024, state fiscal year, and that's when, for the first time, our federal grant requirements exceed our state appropriation. Up to this, our state appropriation was always above our match requirement for our federal grant, as well as our maintenance of effort requirement. So in 2024, based on what we've, kind of project as a result of the CPI, our grant allotment will increase about $3.5 million over 2023. And so it's one of the biggest increases as a state we've ever received. Typically, we receive between 800,000, maybe $1 million if it's a good year, increase. And so we were kind of, proceeding along just above the consumer price index. So this is going to be a big jump. And so each subsequent years builds on top of that. So from this point forward, starting in fiscal year 2024, the state has to continue to increase the amount of state funding in order for us to maintain our ability to meet the match requirement in the future. So that commitment starts in 2024.
Can I just add, because folks may not understand, so in Maryland, it's required to have a balanced budget, and the governor is who sets the budget, and then the legislature has the power to cut from the budget, and I think there's new legislation that's saying that they can then move what they cut around. But the bottom line is that it's the governor and the legislature that you need that support from, just to ensure that folks that are listening in may not be aware how that process works in Maryland. So I just want to make certain that you all understand where that power rests at the end of the day.
Thank you, Jade.
Okay. All right. I'm going to move on to the next slide, talk a little bit about adult work-based learning experiences. So prior to WIOA, DORS had a very robust program where we worked with adults to provide work-based learning experiences through things such as the Governor's Quest internship. We had all sorts of private internships and programs. Due to the required 15% set aside for pre-employment transition services, the focus moved to providing those work-based learning experiences mainly for transitioning youth, so individuals in high school. The adult program was, for all intents and purposes, discontinued. We still did have individual internships and whatnot, but we didn't have any formal programs other than in Western Maryland, we still had one MOU with some providers out there. So DORS recognizes that not all individuals are able to participate in a rigorous training program, and really what they need is that hands-on work experience. So the work experience teach both soft skills as well as the specific job skills, and also just allows people who may have worked before or those who have never worked to get their feet wet, get in the door, kind of prove what they can do with an employer, and get that exposure to a real work experience. So research has shown that work-based learning combined with VR services leads to higher levels of employment for individuals with disabilities. That's really important. So DORS will be restarting their adult work-based, we're going to call it the adult work experience, in probably January, February of 2023. So we have met about that. We're working on it. We're setting up the parameters, which will somewhat parallel what we are currently using for the pre-ETS work-based learning experience. It'll just be a little bit different structure, but we want to give more adults a chance to get out there, work with providers to develop these work-based learning experiences.
Okay. Any questions concerning that piece of it? Okay. The other thing that we want to highlight is a number of the training programs that are offered through the Workforce and Technology Center. So at this point, I'll turn it over to James Evans and have him explain that. Okay. We do have a couple questions, so hold on a second. Andy, Aaron. Oh, is it? There we go.
There you go, Andy.
Am I able to talk?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
I've had my hand up for a little bit. I actually had a question back about the grant and the money to be reverted. So if someone else has a question on this slide, then can you just come back to me before you go on?
I think Ellen has a question as well.
Okay, Ellen?
Yeah, thank you. I was delighted to see the focus on soft skills, but I think it would be helpful for all the members of the commission to understand what precisely those soft skills are. And then the other piece of it is, for me, when I'm representing an individual with disability, I want to know how happy they are in what they're doing, because that means that they'll stick with it. And also things like, how does it make them feel part of their community? I had one client who had both an intellectual disability and an autism spectrum disorder, and she loved her job filling bags at her local Giant because she got to interact with community members. And if somebody might think, oh, that's filling, that's not fulfilling, doing bagging at a shopping, center. But she loved it and had communication, and everybody got to know her. So those are the two pieces of my question.
Okay, I'll address, so the soft skills, just for those who may not be familiar with that language, it's a broad range. It could be learning how to get along with others. It could be appropriate dress, showing up on time, how to talk about your disability if you choose to disclose or not to disclose, how to get along with your coworkers, how to ask questions of your supervisors. I mean, there's a long, long list, and I'd be happy to provide a list if you guys would like that. But soft skills is a very large, encompassing term that we often use. So, and a lot of our consumers, they do have the skills. They've gone through the training and whatnot, but the soft skills, their confidence levels might be a little bit low. So that's what needs to be improved upon before they're really ready to be in working.
Okay. So, Amy, you want to go ahead and ask your question? Oh, Lily. We'll get Lillian first.
Lillian, you can go ahead. You're unmuted.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, my question was simply, is it more difficult to measure the soft skills? The acquisition of soft skills, so that it becomes a positive outcome for you?
Not really. I don't think it's really that much harder, because not only are they working with the DORS counselor who's looking at those soft skills, but with the adult work experience, we will have a community rehab partner working with the individual. And so the individual will be having job coaching, whether it's on or off site. And we also have progress reports that we ask the employer. They agree in the beginning to fill out these weekly reports, and there are certain measurements, and the soft skills are one of those things that are measured. So we do get, consistent feedback from not only the employer, the individual, getting back to what Ellen said, are they happy with the job? Do they like what they're doing? So we do get a lot of feedback throughout the entire process.
Okay, thank you.
Andy said it's not allowing her to mute.
Oh, hang on, Andy. I will try this again.
There we go. I put it in the chat. My question was, what additional funding from the FY23 budget to FY24 is needed to avoid that reversion? You said the grant will increase $3.5 million in 24. So what's the match that the Fed gives Maryland?
Right. The match that the state would have to come up with is just a little less than $700,000 for FY24.
Okay.
That's, and again, part of that is, I'm trying to forecast, okay, if the CPI index that they're using is 8.7, what's that going to look like for the budget? Now, at the end of the day, that 8.7 doesn't get applied to each and every individual grant. It gets applied to the entire nationwide VR grant, and then it goes through the formula. But recognizing that regardless, we'll get still a substantial increase over our current fiscal year. So that's, I'm going to say, I'm going with the high side because I don't want to revert, I don't want to lose money.
So the high side is we would need 700,000 over the FY23 allocation.
Correct.
Okay, has that been communicated by MSDE to the governor since he's building his budget right now?
Well, all I can say is the budget process is ongoing. I mean, I can say within our budget, we requested some additional funding. Now, how that gets all done through the budget process by the time it comes out in January, that's out of, unfortunately, that's out of my hands and so forth. But yeah, we have included some additional funding in our particular request.
Can I ask a quick question? Did all of the folks get the copy of the PowerPoint from the last meeting? Because Scott, I believe you had a chart that broke that all out. And if folks on the call who weren't at the meeting didn't get a copy of that, I think that we should be making certain that they're getting copies of that.
It's on the website.
Okay.
Yeah,
Can you type in the chat and maybe give us the link to that website as well, so that way folks have it?
I think Phil did.
He did.
Earlier.
Someone did already today.
He did.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right.
Next is Jim, and I'm
All
going
right.
to pin him.
Okay. Jim, turn it over to you now.
Yeah.
See if you can.
I'm trying to get you unmuted, Jim. It's not.
See.
There
Does
we
that
go.
work?
There we
Okay,
go,
here we go.
Jim. You're ready.
Okay, Jim.
Hear me? Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. Let me get this off my screen. Okay. I think you can forward to the next slide. Is that right?
Okay, Jim, just let me move over here. I was going to pin you since you're presenting, but I can't have both at the same time.
No.
Go back one, I think.
Sorry.
There we go. So I'm sorry.
There we go. Okay, great. Yeah, look forward to talking about this, running through some of the academic and training services that currently Workforce Technology Center does provide. So first thing I was talking about here is the academic department. So we do have an actual academic staff. They're tutors. They are MSDE, APC. Actually, I think they're all APC instructors. And so they comprise what we call the academic department. So these services filter in, they actually support and overlay into a lot of what we do, pretty much all of our various programs at some level, and also serve people that are not necessarily even in training programs at the center, but are supporting other goals and people that come from the field. And I might throw a few examples in as we go to explain. So, but it can be provided as a single service, as it says, or it's wraparound services to support individuals with specific goals. So an example, not long ago, we helped a young lady prepare to pass her practice exam to become a teacher. She was not at WTC as a student, but we helped with that. We do a number of services, again, to just anyone that's pursuing any kind of vocational or training goal, even outside of WTC. But certainly we do a lot within the center. One thing is the pre-GED tutoring. We started with that. We saw some folks not ready to actually pursue the GED, so we started a pre-GED process to get them up to that point. But then we have been we've always done, but ramped up our GED program services and enjoy the pleasure of helping folks earn their high school diploma and actually recognize them on stage during graduation. When we have our graduations, they get to come and graduate with our other students and be presented their diploma, which is very exciting. So, so that's a very important and enjoyable thing that we do. And then again, that GED allows them to pursue the next steps in the rehabilitation goals, their training programs, either at the center or elsewhere. So some of the things we do, again, there is academic assessments, do a lot with math and reading testing. We traditionally use the TABE, as you all probably are familiar, but acronyms are always there. So Test of Adult Basic Education, but more recently CASAS, the Comprehensive Adult Student Assessment System. So that's really more what since WIOA is more heavily used. So, but the academic assessments, we also do college assessments. We have a college assessment like service, and that can include like the AccuPlacer testing, like you would get maybe trying to enter a college or community college. So our academic staff does that. We do individual and group type assessments. And we also do academic instruction, and that can again be for an individual or a group. A lot of it can center around our various training programs. We may provide like math for food service, for automotive. We support the students currently in the CVS pharmacy tech program to prepare them. So it's again, depending on what the need is, the tutors kind of go throughout and are used in various programs and services to support students. Virtual assessment, of course, COVID was a terrible thing in so many ways, but it did push us forward, and we have been doing a tremendous amount with virtual assessment instruction and being able to really serve the whole state even more easily. Of course, we have our dormitory and students may come there, but also being able to do things virtually, we've really opened that up, and our tutors have embraced that. And so that's been very exciting to do that. So you can move to the next slide. So just very quickly, I'll try to run through various of the programs that we offer right now. And again, we try to look at the current labor markets, creating pathways to employment, putting people into career tracks. So very quickly, I'll just kind of run through this list. You can see it on the screen. Automotive detailing 1 and 2. Again, no particular reading requirement, no GED required. So, you know, a number of folks can come into the detailing 1. It's a progression, sort of a tiered, if you will. So if they can do 1, they can graduate. Work at 1 level, they might come and stay for part 2, maybe be able to work in a dealership or some higher level position. And then they can also transition to the auto refinishing program. And that's really where they become painters helpers and prep work. And they can, so we have a paint booth there, we have lifts, again, so we have an auto shop, we have all of that. The auto refinishing program does include a paid on the job training component prior to graduation. We actually place them essentially in their home community, and that becomes typically their actual job. So they get paid 3 months, and we set them up with an employer, and then they officially graduate at that time and transition. The great thing about that, of course, you know, there's a lot of credentials that folks can earn in the long run through ICAR. It's much like an automotive service excellence, but for paint and body work on the side. So there's a host of, actually there's 85 different ICAR credentials that a person could earn in their lifetime. So moving on, Auto General Service Tech 1 and 2, it's a tiered thing as well. No GED required, et cetera, you know, in the levels. But they do get a credential. We have a front-end laser alignment machine, a 4-wheel laser alignment, and we actually are able to produce a credential that we got approved for that, so they can earn that. And then in 2 is actually preparation for an ASE that they can earn even while at WTC. And some of the things we're doing here with both of these programs is tying them to community. Well, we have a ton of employers and looking for them. They're interested, a lot of them, in becoming registered apprenticeship sites. And so we're going to rebring that. But we were doing that before COVID. And so we're going to bring that back in terms of those, again, being able to be this pathway to apprenticeship, count their time at WTC towards that. So those are things we're developing for the future. Certified childcare provider is 1, and I'll kind of mention it. Many of these programs we do in conjunction with Community College of Baltimore County, CCBC, and we have adjunct faculty that we're able to bring in and teach on site or off site for our students. The auto is all in-house essentially. The certified child care provider, again, that one involves a practicum work experience. They actually go out and work in actual daycares, and they do come out of that with the credentials, 99 hours and 45-hour infant and toddler. So again, all of that's a great career path. CVS Health Retail is we do have a business engaged partnership with CVS itself, and so we have a little mock store. If you want to come visit WTC, you'll see it. All the centers in the country, there's 8 of us like this, partner with CVS, and so those folks actually get a paid work experience in the stores. They start in the mock store in our building, and then they go out and actually work in the local stores, and then we place them in their home community with CVS's help. CVS Health Pharmacy Tech, we just started the class October 3rd, our first class, and so this one's really exciting because they get a state credential, a national credential. They can join CVS's apprenticeship program for Pharmacy Tech, which is the first in Maryland. We have had one DORS client be the first to complete that, so these folks can also become registered apprentices with CVS after they complete our training program, which will be the goal, and that's very exciting. Environmental Services, Housekeeping and Floor Tech is a long-standing in-house program, which actually has great outcomes, great wages and salary, and so that one is doing well. Food service is a long-standing program as well. We've taken a new model to it, much like some of the others, where there's a paid on-the-job training component out in actual local communities. We mentioned it last time, Wise Market, approaching others. So we have a cafeteria, and we have the ability to train in-house, and then they go out, and the teacher goes with them, and they go out into the community. And the companies actually hire them, and then they've transitioned and hired them and kept them on permanently so far. Professional animal care workers pause. That's one we do with CCBC as well. They're out in doggy daycares, groomers, all of that, doing a practicum work experience. And then we have the classroom at WTC. Sephora Warehouse Associate is a very unique one for us. It takes place up in Harford County, up in Aberdeen or Belcamp area, if you're familiar, and it actually happens in the warehouse itself. Our teacher from CCBC goes there, our staff supports it there, goes up there, but those folks train right on the job, get paid on the job, transition directly to employment without an interview, because the program is literally designed to go straight to employment. So that's been really exciting and successful. Starbucks retail barista training, we're going to get that back up and running. Hopefully Starbucks has not been able to restart us after the pandemic, but that it has a long, good history, another partnership with CCBC and with this national employer, and we have placed many people into this. One of our first graduates is actually our barista trainer who trains our current students, which is fun. Warehouse technician is a generalized warehouse class. They are in a warehouse and learn, they get a forklift certification, et cetera. So warehouse just prepares folks in general. And we do have new businesses all the time, which is very exciting. We're always welcome for anybody to send folks our way, where we like to, so we have yet another new manufacturer who's interested in trying to partner with us and again, lead the partnership, because we can't do it all alone, but WTC and DORS will help with that. So at this time, I was asked to help give you a little bit of a personal example. So I'm going to introduce Bright Dazani, or he can pronounce his last name correctly, sorry. Bright is actually a graduate, former student. He's actually in the WTC auto shop as we speak, sitting at the teacher's desk, and he came there he's going to tell his story and give a brief little talk about his time at WTC and what he's accomplished and his goals, to kind of give you a real life example of the path that someone can take. Go ahead, Bright.
Thank you for the opportunity. Bright Jansi is my name. Migrated from Ghana, West Africa in 2001, but now a citizen of the United States of America. It so happened that I was involved in a traumatic vehicle accident in 2013 that rendered me disabled from all medical reports. I went through a series of rehabilitations and other therapies, a series of therapies. During my time of therapy, one of the therapists recommended WTC training program, which I enrolled into in 2015. Before the program, I had no basic knowledge about auto mechanic. Through the able tutors, I was able to go through the training program successfully. After that, I went partially and I studied someone who owns an auto mechanic shop. After the program, I also took State of Maryland Transport Authority exam, passed, and they were ready to hire me. But I turned that down because I had a dream to own my own shop. I got a place in 2017 where I started my own shop. I basically do tires, oil change, brakes, and others. I have trained at least 3 people who own their own shop now, and others have been gainfully employed in other auto mechanic shops. Presently, I have 4 workers at my shop. That is how much WTC have helped improve me and keep me moving on. And I'm very grateful to WTC program as well. Thank you for the offer.
Thank you, Bright. That was wonderful. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, Jim?
All right. So last slide, I believe, for me. This is, again, a major initiative that we are undertaking at WTC on behalf of the agency and really as a whole agency, focusing on apprenticeship. This includes youth with disabilities, apprenticeship programs, and really ramping that up as a career pathway to work directly with the Department of Labor, which we are very much so, to help them meet their goals, and of course to help to create the pipeline for people with disabilities to enter registered apprenticeships and other related services. So basically for us right now, we have had a service, but it's enhanced for apprenticeship consultation, where we work directly with the clients and the counselors. We look at, basically do a deep dive into what they think they're interested in, et cetera. There can be multiple outcomes to this. As people come to us sometimes with no idea, some with very specific ideas, they might be involved with it in high school, which is excellent. So we're looking to bridge the gap between carrying over those apprenticeship goals from as they exit high school into adulthood. So we're creating that bridge there. And also then we're creating a specific new apprenticeship exploration program, which will be a service held at WTC and then can be supported remotely as well. So there's also, again, an academic component where we might be doing assessments for this. We're also doing remediation for those that identified the possibility of this, but their grade levels may not quite be there. And we've been doing this. We help them prepare for the entrance exams for various apprenticeships. So basically, again, now we have this new program that'll be running that helps people to have the initial exploration of that. And then it moves on to the support phase where basically we have now an actual apprenticeship navigator or coordinator who will take the deep dive into actually then taking all of that information and helping those students actually enroll, find the sponsor or job placement, and support them throughout the apprenticeship process and track them over the next year or more to capture all those measures, all those credentials. So apprenticeship is loaded with credentials and all the measures. But more than that, it is a high demand and excellent opportunity for students.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim. Bright, thank you so much for sharing your story. You have a lot of thank yous and inspirational thank yous in the chat. Jim, you had a couple of questions. I'll read the first one. Who decides which industries and other work experiences should be offered? And then, is there an independent workforce expert who advises DORS? And it's a third part. The third part is, have you explored climate change related to jobs like solar panels and installation?
All right, that's a lot of questions. I don't know if Scott and Jody want to help me out. Start over. So at the beginning, basically, right, we have a business engagement unit or department, as well as those of us that work at the center. We're in also collaboration nationally with other agencies and other centers, and we share ideas and things. But it's also really about each state. So Maryland has its own specific labor, needs and demands. So we really do labor analysis, but we are always looking for input and welcome basically any ideas, anything like that. Our goal, hopefully, again, is to any program, new programs that we do, ideally, we want them to be, again, like focused on, the measures, of course, that we meet, but that's because it puts people in that career path. So CNA is one of our next ones we want to get back into, various things like that. So I guess to answer that question is, I think there was, whether there's an independent, I can't remember the second part of the question.
Is there an independent workforce expert who advises DORS? But you sort of addressed that.
Yeah. I mean, Jim, why don't you tell them about your employer groups that you work with?
Oh, right. Yes. Well, so as an example, right, we do advisory board groups. And so all of our programs and the things that we currently do are advised by actual community businesses. So we get ideas from them about the curriculum and the demand for that. And then out of that, often there's offshoots into new ventures. We do get actually a lot from a national level. If you're not familiar with the CSAVR, it's the Council of State Administrators for Voc Rehab, and there's a section called the NET, basically the Employment Network Division. So there's folks nationally, in a sense, too, where connections come down literally from, in a sense, at the national level, where businesses come down to us through the net, through our involvement with the national. There's points of contact, as we call them, or folks. We have one here. Every state, every agency has a net point of contact. So what I'm saying is we do get ideas. That's how CVS, Starbucks came, Sephora came. A lot of these things came from the national level down. But at times we also work kind of from the state level up, and it sometimes meets in the middle. But so again, we have various partnerships and things that inform our decisions. We also get feedback from actual students or from actual clients, from the field counselors, what they're looking for, what the demand is. I'll say that the PAUSE program was specifically literally created and invented because it was primarily our deaf clients at that period in time many years ago. was like, I want to work with animals. And there was just that. So we literally ultimately developed that program out of a base of interest from the clients themselves who kept expressing this interest over and over. And that's how that developed. So each one has kind of come to us through different means and ways. But the big thing is we're always eager for input from the community as to what, and from the clients, what it is they're looking for, and the field staff, what it is they're being asked, or what their most common goals or needs are. And we look at the labor market as well.
Thank you. Could I address the last?
Yeah, then I was Grace.
I would just like to address the last question there was, have you explored climate change related jobs like solar panels and installation? And I know for years we've been looking at green jobs and jobs in that career field. The challenge that we have is because we do serve the most significantly disabled, these jobs a lot of times require physical abilities that our clients may not have. And also educational, very high grade level, college level jobs. Most of our individuals that are going to college are not looking for physical labor type jobs. So there's been a mismatch. We know there's a great need for it, but when we have had programs in the past, we have not had consumers interested in participating in those programs. So that's kind of the running challenge that we have in looking at the needs in the community versus the consumers that we're serving and what they're looking for. So it's a delicate balance between serving the employers and serving the consumers.
I'll just add, this will come up through the apprenticeship angle. There are definitely apprenticeable trades and apprenticeships related to that specifically, and we know that. And so that, just to mention, that will be a way that possibly we will engage in a lot of that via the apprenticeship stuff that we develop, if that helps.
So if I can just, since I asked the question, I just, for the sake of brevity, mentioned solar panels, but there are, for example, there's a whole tree trust initiative with millions of dollars in Maryland to plant trees to help, especially in urban settings, in terms of climate change. So There's greenhouse. I know I have a lot of clients who just love the greenhouse that's at St. Elizabeth's and have gained so many different skills from doing that. So I was thinking broadly, I just used the solar panel as an example, but here in Maryland, I know they could be things like, helping plant a tree, or working in a greenhouse, watering plants or that kind of stuff. That's all in my mind part of climate change. And I know that Andy Kolb had a question about more healthcare jobs and some other questions, but I just wanted to explain. So my two main points were how do you get the input, and an independent industry expert. It sounds like you're getting that, but I think also you could get a lot of information and input from local public schools and non-public schools about the kinds of things that the students are interested in. So I see that as a whole area to be explored and to provide a way to have public and private schools be able to give input on those areas. The other piece of this is I'm listening to this, and I've been doing this for a long time, but there's a lot of stuff you're doing that I wasn't completely aware of. So I'm grateful to be learning this, but I think getting that down to the locals, getting it to the transition specialists in the local public schools, I don't think they're aware of the quite what a variety of possibilities there are. So thank you.
This question, we also have a hand. Jane, and then we'll have the question that's in the chat. Jade, I'm sorry.
Tap on the mic, Jade. There you go. You're on.
So, I swear. So, I don't know, I thought that it was one of the items, but I'm not seeing, so I don't know if this is the appropriate time to raise some of these questions, but I know that other states have been moving to close this facility-based or center model for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is the Olmstead federal decision, which I always worry about. But I also then wonder, is there a reason why the programs that are being made available to the center are being limited to people with disabilities? If access and training is important, I think that integration, we certainly highlight it through the school system, least restrictive environment, and so forth. And then is there the potential, if we took the center and sort of made it something that was more inclusive, could that leverage dollars for a match for DORS as well, in terms of that? I don't know, just trying to think as creatively as possible, recognizing all of the different challenges and limitations that we have, so.
Okay. Thanks, Jade. Yeah, the center itself, it's federally funded, and it's federally funded by the vocational grant, which means it's very specific as to who can receive services through the center and the payments and so forth. So it has to be directed towards individuals who are eligible for services, or in the cases of pre-employment services. So it's not like we can just simply open it up to everybody, because then that becomes, something that we're going to have to really take a look at how the funding stream is used to fund the operation of the center. But also, let me point out, the center is more than just, the training center. I mean, it houses, it houses over 200 individual staff people, of which 80 are the members, or the, the people providing the services at the center. So the rest of the 120 people are it's actually office space. And so and quite frankly, doesn't cost all that much compared to commercial lease space. We're not carrying overhead, we're not carrying a mortgage or anything like that. So it does, again, it's providing a lot of, opportunities and a lot of, and, like Jim said, I mean, part of it is, we provide a lot of stuff, out in the community as well as virtually. So which means we're serving people around the state. So those people have to have somewhere to work, somewhere to be housed. So, and realistically, the fact that training occurs with other individuals who are disabled, there's that in of itself doesn't violate Olmstead. Okay, I mean, the one driving thing under the VR program is client choice. So the clients can choose to come to the center, or they can choose to go someplace else. There's nobody forcing them to come to the center. There are a lot of centers for the blind that around the country that only provide services to individuals who are blind. So, the center in itself is not a unique, when you start taking a look at all the centers that are funded through the VR program.
We have a couple of other questions, and then Ms. Lillian, I see your hand. I do want to highlight it, what Ellen said. For Jim and Scott, there are so many programs and services that are out there and that are offered that we are just learning about. So I think that, just for it to be highlighted that some of the information may not be getting down to the local school systems or to parents and families. So this is another question. How are the needs of the current labor market assessed? So this is the one example. Direct support professionals, since there is no current Bureau of Labor Statistics standards, occupational classification for this job, the state may not know just how dire the workforce shortage is. There is more of a need for these healthcare workers, I think, than a Starbucks barista.
And we would agree with that. I mean, that's, which is one of the reasons why, we do have, the CS, wait a second. About ready to screw up the acronym. The certified nursing assistants. Thank you. Probably should have stayed away from the acronym. So we do look at that. I mean, one of the things, because we're a part of the state's combined state plan, which, gets into, where the labor market needs are from around the state. This includes even the local labor workforce agencies and so forth. So we're a part of that. I mean, we have monthly meetings with our workforce partners, as well as our regional directors sit on all the workforce boards. And so we are getting labor market information from around the state. And I would agree, there is a big need for healthcare workers around the state.
Also, they're happy to see the addition of the pharmacy tech apprenticeship. I was wondering if there are any plans to decentralize the WTC. I hear that it is difficult for some people in certain parts of the state to access. And are there any plans to partner with the careers and technology centers throughout the state and or businesses directly to enhance accessibility to WTC offerings?
Yeah, we're always looking to partner with anybody as a way of providing training and access to services. So, that's part of what this is all about, is to get that input from you all to, look at other options and other avenues that we can certainly explore.
Ms. Lillian, and then the last question for Megan.
Okay, sure. My question kind of goes in the other direction. Expansion and growth is great, and we're all looking to do that. But Jim, I need to ask you, in this climate of this challenge climate of trying to hire sufficient employees who remain on the job, who stay, are you having any difficulty hiring and retaining the workers that you need? Because I would assume that what you described to us today, which is great, it can also be, I would assume, hands-on and time intensive. So do you have always what you need in terms of workers?
You're talking about staff, like staff? Well, I mean, I will say, yeah, that's a loaded question. I mean, I actually lost I have about 40 some staff. I literally lost 22, 23 vacancies out of 38 or so, right? So I had to rebuild from COVID and literally am just fully staffed, maybe -1 for the first time since prior to COVID. So, I mean, in terms of at the center, but again, right, the center, unfortunately, we are, subject to what comes down from the fact that, we have lost the agency, as Scott alluded to last time, has lost 100 pins in the last 10 years. I mean, so the number of pins that we have lost because we've had to give up positions due to the governor or otherwise it coming down through the channels to say you need to give up pins. So, I mean, clearly, if we had more positions, we could do more, right? And so we are constantly, though, reinventing ourselves. And I'll just mention real quick, there's 7 or 8 other centers just like us in the country. I'm actually calling you from Virginia. I'm sitting in the Woodrow Wilson Rehab Center at this moment making this call because we meet as a group and consortium and we share ideas. We all have, through the years, supported each other. There are also smaller centers and versions of the centers throughout the entire country. So even though some people may not realize, but there's, each state decides how to run their services. And so there are a number of also other models and other services throughout the whole country. But I guess just to let you give that background, and we all kind of share our ideas and support. But the bottom line is, of course, right, that's why, again, we do a lot of partnerships with community college because I can't hire an entire staff and set up entire training program, but I'm able to partner with other entities, with actual businesses, with community colleges. And then again, the beauty of that too is they change. So at the moment, we are not running Starbucks, to answer the one person's question, because their situation is such. But we're developing the CNA program because we need healthcare workers. So the beautiful thing is we can adapt and change to the needs of the labor market, of the clients, of the state in which we serve. So we are adaptable and change, just so you know. But clearly, we would love to have more staff and do more. But the thing I'll just mention, and I'm probably I'm overusing my time, but I guess the concept is that there are students that we serve. The students we serve, in many, many cases, would not succeed in a community college setting, would not succeed in a certain thing, or need the additional wraparound services and supports that we have. We haven't even talked about all the technology and the behavioral health and the addictions program, all the things that surround a person to help them through. That's the nature of the comprehensive rehab center and why it works. These same folks may or may not succeed in a traditional setting, but we are a unique setting that actually allows the most significantly disabled folks to achieve things that they may not achieve in these other settings. And they haven't achieved, and they've come to WTC and succeeded. So that is, in a nutshell, I think, why we do what we do.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim. We have one last question from Megan, and then I'm looking at the time and want to honor everyone's time, so we want to be able to move on a little bit. What is the general timeline for starting services with the WTC? And is there generally a wait list? And if so, how long is it?
I'll quickly say we generally don't have a wait list for many of the programs. I mean, recovering from COVID, we're back to filling the classes they are. And again, if there are ways for other workforce partners or other people to utilize the center, great. But we try to fill all our classes. Some of our classes are rolling admission in the sense that people can start anytime throughout the year, and so there's no wait for some of those. Other programs have a specific start and stop time, much like a college program or a service. So there may be a wait only to start the next class, but there isn't necessarily any large wait to enter the programs at this time.
Okay. All right. We kind of need to get to some of the recommendations for DORS funding consideration and getting any recommendations from you all. Again, our time is tight because we still have some other sections we need to get through in the next half hour. Is there, for this particular topic, dealing with funding considerations, is there any recommendations that the commission has for us to consider?
I think we've put it in the chat. I mean, we want to make sure that you don't lose the federal funding and that clear communication, and that could be a recommendation of the commission with the legislature and with the governor's office, that this just can't, I mean, it makes no sense to not fund DORS in a way that maximizes federal funding. So, that to me, that's a top priority in terms of recommendation.
Okay. Thank you.
I concur. To put together a strong advocacy position and to be very clear, because for $700,000 or mere $700,000, we were about to forfeit millions. It just doesn't make sense. Particularly, let's face it, right now, we're kind of flushing money because COVID money came from all places. And I think if there's a well-designed push and request for the funds with strong justification, and you definitely have them just listening to these last two meetings, I think might move the needle.
Okay.
Thank you. You can always put comments in the chat as well. And this might be another area where we can utilize our partners.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, on to the next topic. And again, last time we got into eligibility and the wait list, and we ran to the end of our time together. So we really didn't get much chance to really discuss eligibility criteria and the wait list. So we're going to come back again. We're obviously going to circle back around and get your recommendations and feedback from that. So again, we'll do a quick recap. As a state, a VR program is required to submit a plan to the Rehab Services Administration when a state determines it's unable to serve everybody with a disability. And part of that plan is to include how you intend to serve the individuals, with the fact that your number one priority is to serve those individuals who are most significantly disabled. The criteria is not based solely on the type of disability. The criteria, as I mentioned, based on the significance and the impact the disability has on their functional level. It is up to the state's program to determine the criteria and the categories and who will determine to use those services. This is, again, a recap of our wait list. And as we said, we've reopened Category 2. opened up in September. We'll have everybody from 2017 rolled off by November, and we'll start rolling people off from 2018 in December. Yeah, we're gonna. So here's the category, and we'll go through. Again, we're one of 32 states. We have 3 categories of service. Again, the most significant disabled is our category 1. Category 2 is individuals with a significant disability. And category 3 is non-severe. Just as a reminder, the non-severe, category 3, has been closed since the late 80s. Okay, so that was a brief recap of what we went through last time. And Jody, did you want to talk, if you can, on the eligibility requirements?
Yeah, I just want to talk real briefly. So eligibility determination, there's 2 pieces to it. So there's the determination of eligibility, and then there's the order of selection determination. So I just want to review the 4 eligibility requirements quickly. So the applicant has to have a physical or mental impairment, which is consistent with impairments listed in our rehab services manual, which is the same impairments that any VR agency would look at. The applicant's physical and mental impairment constitutes or results in a substantial impediment to employment. And the third one is the applicant requires vocational rehabilitation services to prepare for, secure, retain, or regain employment or advancement in employment. And this has to be consistent with the applicant's strengths, resources, priorities, concerns, abilities, capabilities, and interest. And then the fourth one, and perhaps the most important one when we're looking at the applicants, is that the individual can benefit from the provision of rehabilitation services by achieving a competitive integrated employment outcome. And that outcome can be full-time, part-time, whatever, self-employment. So those are the 4 factors that we look at to determine eligibility. And then once we determine someone's eligible, then we determine the order of selection, and that would be category 1, 2, or 3. So those 4 eligibility requirements, those are federally mandated. Those cannot be changed by the state. The state can only change their order of selection criteria. So I just wanted to clarify that a little bit.
Okay.
Can you put the criteria up again?
For the order of selection?
Yes, please.
Oh, sure. Let me go back. So I have most significant up there now.
So the concern that I have is, if I understand correctly, that an individual can be denied services because they're not deemed to be capable of ever engaging in competitive employment. Is that correct?
Yes and no. They can be denied services, but before we can deny services, we have to do a trial work experience. So if it looks, for whatever reason that it's doubtful that they could benefit from a competitive and integrated employment, we don't just say, yeah, it looks like you can't cut it and make them not eligible. We go through a trial work experience where we try as many different attempts that we can to see if that individual is able to benefit from CIE, or competitive integrated employment. Yeah, there's a whole process that you have to go through to determine someone not eligible because of that reason. Andy, you have a quick question?
Yeah, thanks. Do you have a chart that shows how other states have done their order of selection? Is it similar to us, where we start with most significant first, or different? And if it's different, why did they do it differently?
Well, I mean, last time we went through and provided 3 examples of other states. One was Washington, that has 5 categories. Then there are several states that have 4 categories. The majority of states that are in order selection have 3, and they to some degree they have to be this way. Category 1 has to be by law most significant if you're in order selection. Then after that, all your other subsequent categories follow underneath. So if you've got 3 categories, the other 32 states are going to look just like this. The only differential between if you have 4 or 5, is you're starting to split. The difference possibly at category 1, where your functional limitations, you have more. I believe Washington, I believe you had to have 4 or more functional limitations before you were considered category 1. So we only require 3 or more. So to some degree, for those states that have 4 or 5, our criteria is less strenuous than theirs.
Yeah, part of my question was, do you know how many states, for example, who start with category 3 first?
No.
Okay, they all start with the most significant first.
Yeah. Again,
Okay.
the federal law requires, and if you go back to the original 1972 Act, it is very specific in the fact that they even mention that the state shall have a plan for those individuals who have the most significant disability. That's not the term they used back in 72, but that's really, if you go back to that original. Now, under WIOA, some of the terminology has changed, and so the ones that get focused, but again, the focus is on the most significant disability.
Move to that.
Okay. So again, are there any changes that you would recommend in changing the order of selection? And again, okay, I have a concern about.
How is competitive integrated employment defined? Does it require full-time work?
No. Competitive integrated employment is defined in federal statute as 1, you're earning a competitive wage for the same type of job that your non-disabled peers are performing. So regardless of whether, let's go to one of the, training programs. If you're working as an auto tech, you're earning the same wage as the individual next to you, as an auto tech. You're receiving the same benefits as everybody else who are non-disabled. Key to the point is it's not sub-minimum wage. So fortunately, in this state, we don't have sub-minimum wage, so we already surpassed that threshold. So again, you're also not segregated off into areas that are just for individuals who are disabled, and you're not interacting with your non-disabled and other non-disabled individuals or non-disabled peers.
If I could just add to that, Ellen, to get to what you're asking about the hours and the whatnot, there is no requirement as to the number of hours that the individual can work. It's based on the individual's ability. Their maximum ability is what it's based on. So if the individual's maximum ability is 2 hours per week, then that's what we go with, and it's considered CIE if it meets all the other qualifications. So, yeah, and that is in the federal regs.
Right. Yeah, I mean, an individual has to work towards competitive integrated employment, and as Jody alluded to earlier, unless they're working towards that goal, then we can't provide VR services. That has to be the goal.
Thank you. There is a lot of, we want to keep capturing this discussion that we're having now. So if it's okay with everyone, we're going to continue to have these questions and work on this question with what recommendations to reduce the wait list. And then we're going to, the last question, if it's okay, we'll go over at the next meeting. So we'll continue because it's a lot of things in the chat as well. So if you don't get your question answered, or if you have a recommendation and something you want to say, please make sure you put it in the chat. But we're going to continue with this one. Jade has it.
Yeah, Jay. You'll get it by the time we're all
I
done.
know, right? Where's my job coach when I could really use one? So a couple of things. First of all, I want to recognize that DORS has, over the years, made significant inroads in ensuring that it was harder to go through the process of saying someone wasn't able to benefit from competitive integrated employment. And so I know that you guys have done a lot of work in that space, and I think that that is really critical. And I think that we have learned that folks may start with an hour or two, and they can add to that and so forth, and that's great. But I do, thinking about the recommendations, and then I have a question. I think one of the most important things that we, the collective we, need to be able to do is to ensure that when we are connecting folks to DORS, that individual is on a path to employment and wants to be employed. We should not be referring individuals over who then are going to get to DORS and say, well, I don't know if I want to work. It is not DORS's responsibility to convince somebody to go to work. So let me just make that clear, because I think that really will help with reducing the wait list if the folks are showing up anxious and ready to go to work. In terms of the wait list, I have a question about these numbers. I presume that these numbers don't take into account folks that maybe aren't even bothering to apply to DORS because they know of the wait list and so forth. And so as we craft recommendations, I think we should recognize that this may not be an accurate reflection of everyone who might be interested in working but hasn't applied to DORS because they're aware of the wait list and whatever. I just want to make certain that context is there.
No, you're correct, that the wait list only includes people that have applied and been determined eligible. So there's a couple questions. I'll take the one from Ellen. She's agreeing with the question before him, but I just want to address, she said also getting students into the DORS system earlier, starting at age 14 when transition services are required under IDA in Maryland. We do, in fact, accept applications from anyone 14 and older. So in the past, we accepted applications in their second to last year of high school, but that all changed with WIOA. And I think there are still, there's still education. There's always education to be done around that we definitely do accept applications at age 14.
And there's a huge misperception of that in many public schools and private schools, thinking that they will say to parents, you got to wait till the next to last year or the last year in high school. And I think that that's a lot of lost opportunity. So anyway, thank you.
So, and there has been significant effort with the local school systems to get that word out to the transition coordinators. I think that the other challenge, and we are working separately on this, is that schools can only provide information, but there's no way for the schools to know if the parents have actually followed up and made that application and so forth. And so we're continuing to try and figure out how can we improve the information flow that can help reinforce and know what's happening there. But yes, there's a lot of work. Eugene's not here today because unfortunately he is meeting with all of the LEAs. But there is that work to ensure that knowledge is getting out to the local school systems. There are some challenges within the local school systems because we have transition coordinators that know this, but the IEP chairs are sometimes so separate. So we're also trying to figure out some of those structural issues to get that information to that next level. So there are people in the school system who know that, but do the people who are meeting with the parents know that, and are they able to operationalize that? And so that's, because that's not DORS's responsibility at the end of the day, and so we are working on that side of the piece to make certain that information is getting out. So I'll speak for Eugene since he's not here.
Okay. One of the things that the superintendent undertook, because when he came on board, we were having a difficult time filling positions. Our salaries, and we mentioned this a little bit last time as well. And it'll come up again. This will be sort of a little bit of a repeated theme. We were not competitive with anybody, realistically. I mean, we would have positions open for 6, 7, 8 months because of that. And so when the superintendent and I first met, I brought this to his attention, and he tasked the senior management of this agency to look at salaries. We did a massive salary study, looking at the surrounding areas, both private and public opportunities for VR counselors. And so this past July 1st, we got a substantial increase in our VR counseling starting salaries, and that was reflected throughout the program for all the VR counselors and supervisors. They received at minimum a 20% increase in their salary, and so it equated to a 2-step, 4-grade increase. So we went from $42,000 a year to $54,000 a year as a starting salary. As Jody mentioned last time, we had an applicant pool of about 3 people. We put it back out, and we had an applicant pool of about 40. We were able to bring back, we had several staff that we were able to bring back who had left for higher salaries because we were now paying higher salaries than where they went to. And so we've been able to bring a lot of people back. We had about 30 staff vacancies in July, and within the next couple of weeks, we'll be down to about 6 when it comes to the counselors and so forth. We still have a couple supervisory positions to get filled, but we've made a lot of strides. And because of that, that's the reason why we've been able to open up Category 2 and start bringing people off the wait list. So we've been able to do a lot of things here in the last 3 to 4 months.
We want to make sure that we are honoring all time. So please, please, please take the time to put your thoughts in the chat. And Jade, I just said to Scott that we want to make sure that your comments, we know that we have people here since you were here, so that we'll get it reflected in the notes for the next time. So if you look ahead, our next meeting is scheduled for November 17th at 10 a.m. So it is 3 o'clock. We are going to adjourn for today. Please keep in mind that if you have, we'll come up with some of the answers to your questions, but we need them recorded in the chat. So if you have additional things that you want to say as it relates to the wait list, and then we'll start with the next question at the next meeting on November 17th. So I thank you very much. Scott, is there anything else you need?
Thank you, everybody, for your participation. We really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much.